No one talks about Michael J. Fox's near-death experience on a movie set. When the rope stopped the flow of blood to his brain during a hanging scene in Back to the Future the 3, it went tragically wrong. It took the director a few seconds to realize that he was dangling unconscious. However, this near-death experience paled in comparison to the covert conflict he was already engaged in. By that time, he was working 18-hour days and keeping his terrible diagnosis a secret from everyone. In many respects, the pressure almost killed him. Everything would change if the truth about those years were revealed. On June 9, 1961, Michael Andrew Fox was born in Edmonton, Alberta. His mother was a payroll clerk with a secret passion for acting, while his father served as a career soldier in the Royal Canadian Corps of Signals. His early years were influenced by his mother's creative spirit as well as the rigid regimen of military life. Being an army brat meant you were always on the go. The family traveled frequently, residing in areas including North Bay and Chilliwack, due to his father's 25-year job. Michael had already lived in 5 different cities by the time he was a preteen. He learned how to adjust quickly, assess situations rapidly, and utilize comedy to build friendships by constantly being the new kid. Although it wasn't an easy life, it helped to mold his later famous sharp wit. The family eventually made Burnaby, British Columbia, their home after his father retired in 1971. As Michael entered the years that would define him, he had a secure household for the first time. Like many boys in Canada, Michael's first dream was to play ice hockey professionally. Motivated by athletes such as Bobby Orr, he threw himself into the sport. He gave the game his all and was quick and tenacious. However, Michael remained little as his teammates became taller and stronger. At 5 feet, 4 inches, he eventually stopped growing, making professional competition all but impossible. The hit was terrible, causing him to give up on his NHL goal and search for another route where stature was irrelevant. That trail showed up in an unexpected location. He had been playing in garage bands and teaching himself to play the guitar, then he discovered acting class in high school. When he was 15 years old in 1976, a teacher saw his innate sense of humor and urged him to try out for a new sitcom on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. A small actor was required for the role of a 10-year-old boy in the television series Leo and Me. His size, which had put an end to his hockey dream, unexpectedly worked to his benefit. After landing the job, he received his first professional salary. Michael had no idea how his life would change when he went into that audition at the age of 15. The fact that a teenager with virtually no professional experience could play the role startled the producers. However, they were won over by his youthful appearance and innate talent. Michael portrayed Jamie, the family's younger brother, in the 2 seasons of Leo and Me. Although it was menial labor, it represented independence and the start of a legitimate career for a youngster in the late 1970s. Leo's and My achievements soon opened doors. Michael rose to prominence as one of Canada's most well-known young actors during 1978 and 1979. He portrayed a disturbed adolescent dealing with his father's alcoholism in television films like Letters from Frank. It was uncommon for someone so young that casting directors started asking him by name. He received roughly $1,500 for each episode, which is equivalent to nearly $6,000 in 1979. At the age of 17, he was being profiled as a rising star in Canadian periodicals, something that often took years to accomplish. He played a part in 1979 that altered his perspective on acting. He played Mark, a young guy who was dying of cancer, in the stage adaptation of The Shadowbox at the Phoenix Theatre in Vancouver. Michael, who was only 18 at the time, was the youngest member of the cast by almost 10 years, and the Pulitzer Prize-winning drama dealt with serious themes of mortality. He was paid only $200 per week for the 6-week run, which included 8 shows per week. This was a significant decrease from television income. What he got, however, was much more significant. His emotional depth and vulnerability, which they didn't anticipate from someone his age, won him plaudits from the critics. Michael came to the realization that acting could be more than simply a career during this production. He found that it might be an art, something that required all of his guts and honesty. Michael made the most audacious decision of his young life in that same year, when he was only 18. He made the decision to leave everything behind and move to Los Angeles even though he had offers in Canada, including a leading role in a new show that would have earned $2,000 per episode for 22 episodes. He had no industry ties, barely $500 in funds, and parents who were concerned that he was squandering a promising career. He was cautioned by his agent that unknowns were generally not welcomed in Hollywood. Not someone his height, in particular. Michael, however, was adamant. For $200 a month, he found a small studio apartment in West Hollywood, where he lived off of generic cereal and bologna sandwiches. He aspired to be famous, but the city rejected him. He was able to secure a few auditions at first, but by 1980, the phone had ceased to ring. His credit card debt reached $10,000 as a result of his mounting bills. Agents ceased making calls. And he received eviction threats from his landlord. He once made it through a whole week on just $1.50, purchasing only day-old bread. He had to sell his sectional couch piece by piece in order to pay the rent in 1981 since things had become so terrible. He earned $50 from the first section. He went on to sell another. He tried out for around 100 gigs at this time but was not hired. He became depressed as a result of the ongoing rejection. And considering giving up. He was completely broke by the summer of 1980, which serves as a reminder that at the time, Hollywood turned away roughly 90% of newbies. Nevertheless, he was hardened by these years in ways he did not yet comprehend. On February 8, 1980, Midnight Madness, his debut feature film, was released. He portrayed a spoiled college student named Scott Larson, who made an appearance for less than 5 minutes. He worked for 2 weeks and was paid $2,000 for the assignment. Just enough to cover his $500 rent for a few days. The Disney comedy barely made $2.9 million, while costing $4 million to produce. He was so malnourished when filming in the summer of 1979 that he passed out one day after going days without eating anything but rice. Despite defeating 200 other applicants for the position, he received no new offers. He paid off $1,500 in debt with the check. However, he found himself broke once more by December 1980. He subsequently said that this part was his lowest point, referring to it as his rock bottom intro. He had to change his name at about the same time. He found out another actor named Michael Fox had already claimed the name when he joined the Screen Actors Guild in 1979. He selected the letter J on November 15, 1979, after being influenced by Bonnie and Clyde star Michael J. Pollard. He didn't use his actual middle initial, A, since he was afraid of humorous headlines like Michael, a Fox. Though he reduced it to Michael J. a Fox, he even considered using Michael J. a Fox. He scarcely had the $100 in costs for the official change. The name was initially used in the Midnight Madness credits, and he signed the documents on December 1, 1979. He claimed to have stayed away from Michael Andrew Fox years later, because it seemed arrogant and overly formal. He had no idea at the time that this hasty decision would turn into one of Hollywood's most well-known names. On August 20, 1982, he received the call that would transform his life. He was 21 years old, on the verge of being evicted, and in debt by $30,000. To make ends meet, he had even started selling his final possessions. The phone bill was past due by 2 months. And when agent Bob Schulenberg informed him that he had been cast as Alex P. Keaton in Family Ties, he almost missed the call. He was so anxious that he almost ruined his first audition in May 1982. Everything changed when he was called back on June 15. Defeating 500 other performers, including Matthew Broderick. The role, which earned $5,000 per episode, prevented him from going bankrupt by bringing in $100,000 for the first season. After its September 22, 1982, premiere, the show was drawing 30 million people every week by 1983. In a 1990 interview, he subsequently said that he was relieved that day and believed he was only a few days away from quitting up and going back to Canada. In addition to winning him 3 consecutive Emmy Awards from 1986 to 1988, the sitcom aired until 1989 and served as the foundation for Back to the Future in 1985. Which brought in $381 million globally. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that one call changed everything. Alex P. Keaton, his character, was never intended to be the main character on Family Ties. The plot of the show was liberal, ex-hippie parents and their children. However, after just 4 episodes, the authors changed the focus of the show to the conservative adolescent Republican carrying a briefcase because viewers were obsessed with him. Initially, NBC executive Brandon Tartikoff even urged that Fox should be removed, claiming that his visage was too short and unfit to be on a lunchbox. Later, Fox had a personalized lunchbox manufactured with the words, "This is for you to put your crow in, Brandon." Fox was one of the most adored TV personalities in America by the time the show concluded on May 14, 1989. The accolades came soon after. From 1986 to 1988, Fox won 3 Emmys in a row, which is uncommon for someone so young. In 1989, he was awarded a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy. Family relationships dissolved in the same year. During its 7-year existence, the show received 24 awards and 43 nominations. When Fox reached this degree of fame, he was still in his 20s, making him one of the newest and most successful celebrities on television. His character's timing was ideal for the 1980s. P. E. Keaton's fascination with business, Wall Street, and three-piece suits became emblematic of Reagan-era America. The sitcom, which was set in Columbus, Ohio, during the administration of Ronald Reagan, depicted the conflict between baby boomer parents and their conservative, aspirational kids. Years later, observers were still citing Fox's figure as a symbol of the decade. What would Alex P. Keaton do in policy debates? Eric Stoltz was the first actor cast as Marty McFly back in November 1984. He appeared to be a wise pick and had just received recognition for his performance in Mask. However, director Robert Zemeckis recognized a problem after almost a month of production. Stoltz was moving the character away from the lighthearted vibe he desired and toward a darker, more serious direction. On January 10, 1985, Zemeckis personally broke the bad news. Michael J. Fox took Stoltz's place, but Stoltz was still paid in full. Filming had already cost the studio a fortune. Actually, the scene in which Marty punches Biff in 1955 is the only short shot of Stoltz that survived in the finished movie. Later, Zemeckis said that the most difficult time in his career was when he fired Stoltz. Notwithstanding his opinion that Stoltz was a very talented actor, the choice subjected Fox to a demanding timetable that few people in Hollywood could handle. He worked from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the Family Ties set at Paramount from mid-January to mid-March 1985. He then hurried to the Back to the Future set at Universal, where he worked from 6:30 p.m. until 2:30 a.m. It was considerably worse on Fridays. He filmed again at 10 p.m., frequently working until dawn, after practicing Family Ties from midday until 5 and doing 2 live tapings for the studio audience. The 24-year-old actor occasionally needed to be forcibly carried to bed by the crew. He once searched the Family Ties set for a camcorder only to discover it was a prop from the movie because he was so sleep-deprived. Until Family Ties concluded in April 1985, this pattern continued for 2 complete months. Fox had a horrific near-death experience a few years later while filming Back to the Future Part 3. He first stepped atop a safety box that was out of sight of the camera during a hanging scene on the gallows. The effect's lack of realism was the issue. Fox persisted on trying the scenario without the box, using his hand to prevent the rope from tightening, since he was determined to make it seem realistic. He made a mistake on the 3rd try, and the rope stopped his brain's blood supply. Before Robert Zemeckis recognized what was occurring and gave the order to have him cut down, he lost consciousness and dangled helplessly for a few seconds. Later, Fox claimed that the director's prompt response had saved his life. He might have had irreversible brain damage or worse without it. Notwithstanding the difficulties, the trilogy rose to prominence as one of the most cherished movie franchises ever. Despite having a $19 million budget, the 1985 original film made close to $400 million worldwide. It was designated as culturally and historically significant by the U.S. Library of Congress in 2007 and added to the National Film Registry. It wasn't simply Marty McFly that Fox played. In order to demonstrate his versatility, he also played Marty's son and even his ancestor, Seamus. Even the number 1.21 gigawatts, the DeLorean, and the phrases became commonplace. Fox noted that kids never considered the movie to be outdated, drawing a comparison between its everlasting appeal and The Wizard of Oz. Reunions and charity activities keep the spirit alive, and the trilogy still inspires new followers decades later. Because of the movie's success, Fox became well known right away. Teen Wolf came out just 1 month later, making the summer of 1985 his career's turning point. The Secret of My Success, Light of Day, Casualties of War, and Doc Hollywood were among the subsequent hits. He even hosted Saturday Night Live in 1991. He rose to prominence as one of Hollywood's most sought-after actors in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Spin City, a sitcom, was another success for him, which won him 3 Golden Globes and ran from 1996 to 2001. He had laid the groundwork for a career that would establish him as a global household celebrity thanks to the trilogy. Both spectators and critics were taken aback by Fox's ability to transition between serious drama and lighthearted comedy. He co-starred with Sean Penn in the terrifying Vietnam War drama Casualties of War, 1989, which was based on a 1966 true story. Fox portrayed Private Erickson, a soldier who witnesses a Vietnamese woman being abducted and beaten by his squad. Roger Ebert referred to his performance as his best dramatic work since it was so potent. Ebert called his inebriated monologue in Bright Lights, Big City, where he played a fact-checker on the verge of cocaine addiction, the best performance of his career. He was much more than a teenage idol, as these roles demonstrated, and able to manage extremely intricate material. When he entered the voice acting industry, his career took off once more. Chance, the bulldog in Disney's Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey, was voiced by him in 1993. Fox's energetic voice acting charmed many viewers, and the movie became an enormous smash. His 1999 role as Stuart Little, which brought in over $300 million globally, was a direct result of his popularity. Later, voice acting became particularly significant because it enabled him to keep working even as his health deteriorated. In 2001, he demonstrated his flexibility once more by providing the voices of characters in Atlantis, The Lost Empire. Fox was a real box office king by this time. Doc Hollywood earned $54.8 million, but The Key to My Success brought in $110 million. Teen Wolf, 2. Grossed $80 million globally when it was released at the same time as Back to the Future. At the time, his films brought in an astounding $1.82 billion, placing him 144th out of all actors. He completed 7 seasons of Family Ties and starred in 10 feature films between 1985 and 1991, a workload few could match. Behind the accomplishment, however, Fox's health was slowly declining. Michael J. Fox felt a twitch in his left pinky finger in 1991 while filming Doc Hollywood. A physician diagnosed him with early-onset Parkinson's disease at the age of 29. The diagnosis took him by surprise. The tremor moved from his finger to his entire hand in less than 6 months. He later acknowledged that he was a heavy drinker in those early years. He described himself as a clear alcoholic who drank to cope with his anxiety about his physical condition. He felt that he wanted to suffer and sink as low as possible before confronting the reality, so he would occasionally spend hours in the bathtub with his head submerged. On the outside, he was still a vibrant star in Hollywood. He developed the ability to conceal his illness from co-workers and cameras between 1991 and 1998. In order to seem steady during scenes, he took his dopamine medicine at precise times, chewing pills like Halloween Smarties. He frequently held briefcases or coffee cups on stage to cover up his shaking hands. He anchored himself by leaning against walls and tables, putting his body in seemingly natural positions that hurt all the time. Nobody realized how much he was having trouble. Fox hit a breaking point in 1992, a year after receiving his diagnosis. He said he reached rock bottom as a result of drinking, sadness, and deteriorating symptoms. He made the decision to give up alcohol, which changed his life, with the help of his wife, Tracy Pollan, and his little children. He has almost 30 years of sobriety. He acknowledged that the initial days of sobriety were difficult since he was unable to conceal his anxieties in the absence of booze. Pollan supported him and forced him to face the truth. And he began his path to acceptance with that decision. Without disclosing the reason, Fox started changing his career in the ensuing years. He turned to television after completing movies like Doc Hollywood in 1991 and The Frighteners in 1996. He agreed to play the lead in ABC's Spin City in 1996. However, he disclosed his diagnosis to DreamWorks CEO Jeffrey Katzenberg and network president Robert Iger prior to signing. "It could get really bad or maybe not," he explained. They advised him to proceed nevertheless. Since television allowed him to remain in one location rather than travel for filming, he decided to pursue it. He realized he couldn't keep the secret for much longer after the second season because his symptoms had gotten worse. Fox announced his Parkinson's disease to the public on the cover of People magazine on December 7, 1998. For 7 years, he had kept it buried. He was compelled to make the announcement because paparazzi had begun to take pictures of his symptoms. He felt relieved and anxious at the age of 37. He may only be functioning for another 10 years, according to his doctor. Todd Gold wrote the piece, which told his narrative while promoting Parkinson's research awareness. The reaction was instantaneous. He was inundated with supportive letters from fans, celebrities, and complete strangers. The news helped him connect with people and dispel the stigma associated with the illness, rather than hurting his career. Spin City was an enormous hit. During its 6-season run, Fox won 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards in 1999 and 2000, 3 Golden Globe Awards in 1998, 1999, and 2000, and 1 Emmy Award in 2000. As his symptoms worsened, he remained an actor and executive producer. After having a 4-hour brain operation to control his symptoms, he disclosed his illness to his co-stars during the second season. Despite his health issues, the performance flourished and audiences welcomed him. The physical strain became unbearable by January 2000. Fox described how he felt his motions becoming rigid and his face hardening. In later episodes, viewers may see him clinging to walls or tables. His departure from Spin City was announced on January 19, 2000. His fellow actors were heartbroken. In interviews, Barry Bostwick wept and wished him luck in his battle with the illness. He was replaced for the final 2 seasons by Charlie Sheen. To provide fans with closure, Fox made 3 farewell guest appearances. Michael J. Fox was just 39 years old in 2000 when he established the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. After receiving the diagnosis in 1991 at the age of 29, he had already been living with the illness in secret for 9 years. What began as a single man's endeavor swiftly expanded into a global force that changed the way Parkinson's research was conducted. It was the biggest private funder of Parkinson's research by 2006, according to The Guardian. In contrast to the majority of medical research organizations, the foundation maintained strict oversight over its programs and provided funding directly to researchers it felt had the highest potential of discovering a cure. It was even called the world's most trustworthy voice on Parkinson's research by the New York Times. Few would have believed it was possible when it started, but by 2022, the foundation was funding more Parkinson's research than the entire U.S. government. It has raised a staggering amount of money. The foundation is the biggest nonprofit funder of Parkinson's disease research globally, having raised more than $2 billion for programs related to the disease as of 2023. Community fundraising events brought in a record-breaking $53 million in 2024 alone. In the 41-day Team Human-Powered Potential Challenge that summer, 4 men, one of whom had Parkinson's disease, rode 2,800 miles from California to Hawaii. Thanks to an unknown donor who committed to triple match each donation, their efforts generated $41 million in donations. Even modest campaigns yielded remarkable outcomes. A Nike raffle raised $6.75 million in 2016. From only 2 Hong Kong and London auctions. The organization received $316 million in revenue by 2023, of which $303 million came from private donations. The world has never witnessed such a high degree of private support for a single illness. The foundation contributed to what many referred to as the largest Parkinson's disease discovery since the 1967 discovery of levodopa in 2023. Researchers found a method to diagnose Parkinson's disease with 93% accuracy through the Parkinson's Progression Markers Initiative, a project that started in 2010. The test detects aberrant alpha-synuclein proteins in spinal fluid and is called the alpha-synuclein seeding amplification assay. These proteins, which are frequently referred to as the Parkinson's protein, may be present in both high-risk individuals and those who have already received a diagnosis. Who didn't exhibit any symptoms yet? The findings instantly altered the conduct of clinical studies, making them quicker, less expensive, and more successful. They were published in The Lancet Neurology in April 2023. A letter of support supporting the biomarker for study in clinical trials was released by the FDA in September 2024. After decades of work and millions of dollars in funding, this discovery was made, as well as thousands of willing volunteers for the study. In 2000, Fox resumed acting despite his worsening symptoms, concentrating on parts that allowed him to incorporate his Parkinson's symptoms into the personas he portrayed. The decision paid off. His portrayal of Dwight in Rescue Me earned him his 5th Emmy Award, while his portrayal of Lewis Canning on The Good Wife garnered him 6 additional nominations. He was on Curb Your Enthusiasm as well. Boston Legal, Scrubs. Adventures of an Incurable Optimist, an ABC special he produced and hosted in 2009, traveled to the United States, India, and Bhutan and was nominated for an Emmy. Before he declared his retirement in 2020, his final significant acting job was in The Good Fight. Following a 5-year hiatus from television, Fox will make a comeback in 2025 as a guest on Apple TV Plus Shrinking, reuniting with Bill Lawrence, his co-creator of Spin City. Fox had an impressive literary career as well. He became one of the most renowned authors of memoirs after his debut novel, Lucky Man, shot to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. He wrote 3 more best-selling books after that. 2020, No Time Like the Future, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Future, and Always Looking Up. He received Grammy nods for 3 of his audiobooks, with Always Looking Up taking home the Best Spoken Word Album title in 2010. Although his most recent memoir was more open about the challenges that had almost caused him to lose up on that outlook completely, his books described how he dealt with his sickness while maintaining his optimism. He talked about surgeries as well as the battle against Parkinson's, falls, and the everyday struggle to just keep going. President Joe Biden presented Fox with the Presidential Medal of Freedom at the White House on January 4, 2025. That year, he was one of just 19 individuals to be honored. The White House hailed his tenacity and optimism and described him as a brave advocate for people with Parkinson's disease, joining an elite group of leaders, activists, and Nobel Prize winners. Since its inception, his charity had raised over $1.75 billion by that point. During his remarks, Fox expressed his gratitude for the opportunity to share the award with the patients, families, and researchers who were collaborating to end Parkinson's disease. Among others, Anna Wintour, Bono, and Denzel Washington attended the ceremony. Fox shocked everyone by making a comeback to acting after a 5-year hiatus later that year. He made his television debut since The Good Fight in 2020 when he joined the cast of Shrinking for Season 3 in May 2025. Since Harrison Ford had previously portrayed a character with Parkinson's disease in the series, the part had personal significance. The actors and crew knew he had trouble moving and speaking, so they made every effort to help him on set. Acting was not the only consideration in Fox's decision. It demonstrated that Parkinson's disease would not set his boundaries. His 6th novel, Future Boy, Back to the Future, and My Journey Through the Spacetime Continuum, will be published by Fox in October 2025. It is set for the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future and centers on the year 1985, when he filmed Family Ties during the day and appeared as Marty McFly at night. "Time went rogue and took me with it," he said of that time period. The memoir contains previously untold stories and brand new interviews with the cast. Fox, who co-wrote it with Nell Fortenberry, who is also on the board of his charity, said it was more of a meditation on identity and purpose than a memoir. At 64, Fox has now opened up about the difficulties of having Parkinson's disease. For over 30 years. "It's getting harder every day," he recently acknowledged. He still has a sense of humor, though. In response to his wife Tracy Pollan's birthday post on Instagram, Fox said he was becoming more appreciative rather than older. He has openly discussed how he frequently falls and loses his mobility, and his close friend Ryan Reynolds said he falls because he isn't scared to fly. Fox continues to be at the forefront of innovative research, including a $100 million initiative aimed at finding biochemical indicators for Parkinson's disease, despite his health issues.